What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about here on a daily basis. And things are getting hot here. The UK Prime Minister has just resigned amid pressure and scandal. I'll let you hear what he has to say. Basically, one of our closest allies, if not the closest ally here of the United States, the president has just resigned. That's right here, or the prime minister, same thing, right? And you won't believe what Mitch McConnell says in an unrelated matter, which I believe is completely out of touch with the common American who is struggling right now due to inflation, with 60 some percent, 58 to 60 some percent of Americans that are struggling right now due to inflation. You won't believe what he has to say. We'll cover all that here in today's episode. So let's jump right in. Yeah, so the United Kingdom's Prime Minister Boris Johnson has resigned here this morning. And this really comes as they got a lot of turmoil going on there in their government. And here's what he has to say. Check this out.
It is clearly now the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister. And I've agreed with Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of our backbench MPs, that the process of choosing that new leader should begin now. And the timetable will be announced next week. And I've today appointed a cabinet to serve, as I will, until a new leader is in place. So I want to say to the millions of people who voted for us in 2019, many of them voting Conservative for the first time, thank you for that incredible mandate, the biggest Conservative majority since 1987, the biggest share of the vote since 1979. And the reason I have fought so hard in the last few days to continue to deliver that mandate in person was not just because I wanted to do so, but because I felt it was my job, my duty, my obligation to you to continue to do what we promised in 2019. And of course, I'm immensely proud of the achievements of this government, from getting Brexit done to settling our relations with the continent for over half a century, reclaiming the power for this country to make its own laws in Parliament, getting us all through the pandemic, delivering the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, the fastest exit from lockdown, and in the last few months, leading the West in standing up to Putin's aggression in Ukraine. And let me say now to the people of Ukraine that I know that we in the UK will continue to back your fight for freedom for as long as it takes. And at the same time, in this country, we've been pushing forward a vast program of investment in infrastructure and skills and technology, the biggest in a century, because if I have one insight into human beings, it is that genius and talent and enthusiasm and imagination are evenly distributed throughout the population, but opportunity is not. And that's why we must keep leveling up, keep unleashing the potential of every part of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, so a scandal-ridden Boris Johnson quits as the UK Prime Minister. Yeah, he was the UK's Conservative Party leader. Yeah, so let me know your thoughts here in the comment section. And, a little bit of a different process here in the United States. We have seen presidents here resign, and not for quite a while here. We have also had impeachment hearings not too long ago here in the United States. So, I mean, we're also have our fair share of controversy here, and doesn't seem too unfamiliar here in the U.S. as well. I mean, we're literally going through the January 6th hearings, so we're not too unfamiliar with controversy here as well. So, seems like this kind of stuff goes pretty much everywhere in the world, right? Yeah. So, speaking of controversy, our conservative leader ish right now, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, Here's what he has to say. Let me know your thoughts on this because I personally thought that this was out of touch with a lot of people here today. But here's what he has to say. Republican leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, blames the COVID stimulus checks for the U.S. labor shortage. You know, those stimulus checks that went out last year, like 14 months ago, that were $1,400? Yeah, here's what he has to say here. Yeah, he says US companies are still struggling to hire workers because Americans are flush for the moment with money, is basically what he's saying, due to the stimulus checks they received from the federal government. Yeah, to help them through the pandemic, according to the nation's most powerful Republican, Mitch McConnell, is what they're referring to here. Yeah. So let's think about that here for a second. The last stimulus check here was $1,400, which was roughly 14 months ago. About $100 per month. Am I missing something here? Does that make people flush with cash here? I'm I'm completely flabbergasted here. Are you flush with cash from that $1,400 check 14 months ago? And meanwhile, during our research here and what we talk about here on a daily basis and the comments I see here on the daily basis, I literally see that is the only article or the only comment I have seen like that from anybody. Meanwhile, I see these every single day. Most in new polls say the federal government's actions or inactions are hurting them financially because they're not providing enough support. Soaring food and gas prices mean almost 1 in 2 Americans say they're struggling financially, new survey finds. Americans are feeling increasingly uncomfortable about their savings and as inflation takes toll. And a large majority of Americans don't have any savings, as you'll see here. Here, directly from the US Census Bureau, from census.gov. Many adults approaching retirement age may not be financially prepared to retire. 49% of adults ages 55 to 66 had no personal retirement savings in 2017, according to the U.S. Census Bureau's Survey of Income and Program Participation. No personal retirement savings at all. About 50% of adults nearing retirement age. Yeah, so you let me know your thoughts here in the comments about Mitch McConnell's comments. I personally think it's out of touch. Do you still have the $1,400 that you got 14 months ago? I mean, maybe it has something to do with Mitch McConnell's net worth because he doesn't really need the $1,400. Check this out. Yeah, as you can see here, estimates of Mitch McConnell's net worth are as large as $150 million. Yeah, so I guess if you were worth $150 million, then maybe you would say you wouldn't, a $1,400 stimulus check, you would think that, yeah, well, I don't need that. Or you might think that, the average person would be saving that money and they wouldn't need to go to work because of that money. I mean, you really, when you're worth $150 million, you're pretty much out of touch with how the average person is struggling with money. You're just on a different scale. You're on a different playing field, right? I mean, here's what Mitch McConnell has to say. Mitch McConnell says the labor shortage currently hampering the U.S. economy will be resolved once the money the Americans have saved from their stimulus checks run out. That whole $1,400 from the last payment, or maybe the $600 from the payment before, which was even longer ago. So he thinks that Americans still have this money saved. He says, look, here, Mitch McConnell says, you've got a whole lot of people sitting on the sidelines because, frankly, they're flush for the moment with cash. Mitch McConnell said during an event in Paducah, Kentucky. This is, I mean, you let me know your thoughts here. He says, quote, what we've got to hope is that once they run out of money, they'll start concluding it's better to work than not to work. Yeah. So this is just the type of out of touch comments that people take and have no confidence with our government here. And it's not just the Republicans, it's the Democrats, everything. In fact, if you actually look at this, the confidence in our government, in Congress right now, is at an all-time low. An all-time low. And the Supreme Court, the confidence in both Congress and the Supreme Court and the presidency are all pretty much at or near all-time lows. Check this out.
To some stark new numbers about the confidence or lack thereof Americans have in their institutions. The new poll out this morning shows the Supreme Court and the presidency have the largest drops compared to this time last year. Congress still the lowest of all the big American institutions. Only 7% of American adults say they have faith it is working properly. Joining us now, Gallup's editor-in-chief, Muhammad Yunus. Muhammad, good morning. It's good to see you again today. Take us through some of these numbers. Obviously, Congress has never been terribly popular with the American public, but we're seeing some real erosion in the presidency and the Supreme Court as well.
Absolutely. The two worst rated institutions, I have to say, are the one behind me, Congress, and the one I'm in, TV News. And I'd love to talk with you about that later, Willie. At the end. But what's important to point out is that among these 16 institutions that we've been tracking since 1972, 11 saw significant drops this year. But this is a 15-year bipartisan, consistent decline across the board. So this is not something new, unfortunately, for America and Americans, but it's only a continuation of a trend we've seen. The average of all institutions, people that rate them the highest or confidence the highest, is now at 27%.
Say for the record, I have tremendous confidence in Willie Geist. But I wanted to dig in a little further on some of the polling results here. Obviously, the Supreme Court has been in the news dramatically in recent weeks, and certainly among Democrats, I think their faith in that institution has really fallen. But if you will, speak to us also about the impact of former President Trump, who basically spent 4 years as president attacking institutions, whether it be the Department of Justice or the media or Congress or the executive mansion itself. What role has he played in these numbers?
I think the political narrative in the country, I mean, the worse it's gotten, the worse these numbers have gotten. But it's important to keep in mind that people are frustrated with different institutions for different reasons. A lot of the narrative that we saw, whether it is from President Trump or specifically in the campaign era, and particularly also with Bernie Sanders, really speak to the underlying disappointment that Americans have with national government. Right now, only 13% of Americans are satisfied with the way things are going in the country. I think there's hope, though, and there's a lot of hope at the top of that list. And what ranks the highest really are the military, as well as small businesses. And it's really important to keep in mind that the things that those two institutions represent to Americans, local accountability, failure and success are very clearly defined. They get their hands dirty. They don't take credit for things they didn't do. They really feel different than a lot of the other institutions on that list. I think the media is one of the most important challenges, and it is different because we've learned that division really sells. So there's a business model challenge with that, but there's a lot of hope for the future. I think when Americans have been celebrating at their highest levels of American, for example, we just had 4th of July, pride in American citizenship. we've made some of the worst decisions as a nation, bipartisan decisions, that we've ever made. Perhaps this relative low is a moment where Americans are looking more closely at their leaders and putting more pressure on the kind of demonstrated leadership they want to see and that they approve of in those two institutions that are at the top.
Yeah, so let me know your thoughts here in the comments. Meanwhile, we have multiple different states that are passing stimulus checks, tax rebate checks, pausing the gas tax. The federal government or President Biden has called on Congress to do so here as well, and the states to pause their federal gas tax here as well. I'll keep you up to date here on everything going forward. And as we get closer to election time, expect a lot of fireworks here. And I'll link you to two videos you can watch here next. Make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on new videos. I will keep you up to date here with everything going on here in Congress and in our country. And after you subscribe, click the bell icon so you get notifications. It's completely free to subscribe. You can click here to see the new deal that they just made in Congress on the next stimulus package. And here is multiple states that are sending out stimulus checks here, and some actually going out here this week. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.